Hey YouTube, the most common question that I get is about theta meditation and quantum healing. And I decided to sit down with one of my gurus, a theta meditation expert, quantum healer. And I thought it'd be interesting for someone who actually knows what they're talking about to explain what exactly it is and how you can change your entire life by raising your vibration. Tell us a little bit about theta meditation, quantum healing, just an overview of what people can experience and why it's important.
So first of all, it's important to describe the brainwaves that we all experience as a simple tool of the access that we are eventually going to work into the theta brainwave. Right now we're processing information. There's a kind of a horizontal field. I'm speaking, you're receiving, you're trying to understand what I'm saying, and our brainwaves are in the beta processing cycle. If we took the same conversation and we sat quietly at the ocean and we were just looking at the ocean waves, our brain waves naturally slow down and we go into alpha, which is also, if you're familiar with Reiki, that's the brainwave that Reiki masters work with. It's a great space to slow down into and do pain relief, or if you're ever trying to find something, you've misplaced something, if you just go out of the frantic mode and into a little space of calmness, you know, a lot of times you just get led right to finding something. That's the alpha.
And this is all vibration based, right? Frequency.
This is cycles per second in your brain. So if we were to measure our brain waves, we would, you know, we're normally cycling around the 14 to 28, which is the beta. So then when we slow down, we go into alpha. When we slow down further, we go into, or we are experiencing the theta brainwave, which is what we naturally all experience every time before we fall asleep and when we're first waking up. That in-between state is when we are experiencing the theta wave. So obviously every brainwave, and then let me just finish the brainwaves, and then when we're deep asleep, we're in the delta wave, and that's when, you know, we're just out. It's not non-dreaming, we're just deep out, recharging, that's it. And then the gamma state is when we can cycle all the way to 2,000 cycles per second, and it's just off the charts, hard to measure. It's when things are happening super fast but in slow motion at the same time. A lot of times people describe this when an accident's about to happen, where it's like everything was going so fast but so slow, and it was like, and so it's also understood that we are so powerful in that state that we can change the outcome. So it's, you know, anyway, that's
Some people call gamma the God.
The God, yeah.
Yeah.
The God wave.
The God wave, right? Yeah, because you're at the potential.
You're fully at co-creation mode.
Right.
And so learning how to tap into the theta brainwaves is like learning how to do brain gym exercise to say, hey, I want to be in that co-creative space, in that space where I can create or discreate and be tapped into source, 0 point energy, speed of light, whatever we consider that's greater than this form right here in this.
So if people believe in manifesting or allowing access to what exists, the theta state is the one in which allows you to, some people say co-create, but manifest or attract.
The strongest way,
yeah,
in order to do that.
So we can take our possibilities and make them realities.
And create
thoughts
that in the
from thought.
From imagination, from thought, imagination, space, and like everything that exists in imagination first. So, and then bringing that into this reality. So, therefore, it is the most sort of therapeutic or beneficial brainwave, although everything has its place. But as you know, adults in this world where we're constantly processing information, and whether we're getting it in or we're looking at it here or whatever, we're in this constant beta state. So just being able to simply tap into the theta state, again, using that sort of brain gym exercise to get yourself tapped in, and even doing it for 5 minutes a day. I mean, it's obviously better if you could do it for 20 minutes a day, but you know, this is what I say when I teach my classes, is in 3 minutes you can change your entire in 2 minutes, in 1 minute. It's just about taking that space to sort of, I call it, come into that verticalization, and that space where you can allow yourself the breath and the ability to tap in.
So, why do I find, I've been doing this for 10 years, why is it that if you do it every single day, it makes exponential difference compared to missing a day?
I believe that, we're constantly creating these neural pathways and these patterns that that become our habits or whatever that is. So when we're creating that newness, that that connection to all that is, that highway that connects us from our pineal gland into the source of all that is, and again, this could be from spiritual to religious to scientific, it doesn't matter. It's a brainwave, and we're talking about connecting to the light of all that is, or 0 point energy. So we're essentially creating, the first time we do it, we're creating a thin little neural pathway. It's like, oh, we connected. Wow, we feel like how that feels to be connected to the light of all that is, and really recharging from that space. Working on every layer, every cell, every even DNA, everything that you can, recreate, co-create, discreate, change what you need to. So then the next day, if I take the same neural pathway, I've made the highway a little more paved, and the next day a little more, then it widens out and it gets wider and wider. So before I know it, I've done 40 days of it every day, and now it's a set neural pathway, and now I tap in all the time. So then what happens is, when the things of the daily life come up, and now all of a sudden I've become frantic because stress is part of this dual reality that we live in, and so then I can say, wow, I have this highway that I can take a moment, I can say, hey, excuse me, I gotta go to the restroom for a second, and I could just stand and breathe for a second and feel that connectivity, feel that way that I tap into theta brainwaves, feel that everything's all right because I am just connected to everything that is. I'm a little speck that is in this greatness, and it's all okay, and then come back into the reality. So that pathway being a habit now, or being so developed because you've now done it all the time, is like second nature. It's just like a tool in your pocket.
And then how does that affect, one of the things that happened over the decade that I've been doing this is that all the neural pathways have been formed, which allows me to go back to what I call center, 0 point. But also, it's had a direct effect on two different unconscious competencies that I've had energetically, that naturally I attract and co-create without having to think about it. Mm-hmm. And then two, there's a genetic disposition that occurs. There's DNA that's been passed down in personality traits, characteristics, obsessions, and addictions that are, four generations passed on to me, that because of the neural pathways, because of theta, I've been able to deactivate,
absolutely,
right, some of the unhealthy cells,
absolutely,
and activate the healthy DNA.
Exactly.
And what is the connection between the neural is that just an automatic or an automated system from mind to soul, or how do you describe that?
I do describe that as, there's so much that we're in the first beginnings of our life, that we're, the sponges that are giant beings that are just grabbing, absorbing, and so we create, by repetition, by habit, by things that we're taught and told, we create these neural pathways. And so it's kind of the gear shift that our soul lands into. It's like, okay, this is how this rolls around here. And then we have that potential for always, again, this creating, let's unplug those things, and obviously we have to know that by knowing ourselves and knowing what those things are, that we so much of the time we're just in those normal shifts, and a lot of people don't wake up. So once we start to wake up and see, that one is not, and then the soul obviously is like, just waiting for that graduation, so let's help you with that. So then what happens is, in a theta session, we can do a lot of work in a short amount of time. It's then up to the recipient to not feed those same things that we discreated to recreate them, and to feed those things that we created that we want, that's the highest and best for us, and that's the lightest space. So it's people come to me with like a laundry list. I want to do this, and this, and this. And I'm like, that's great, but we need to follow it with, allow it to be as great as we want it to be, and then step into that. So shift the gears to that other space, or move the neighborhood in which we live in our brains, and shift that to a higher degree.
one last question, because it changed my life. When I met Dr. Sangeeta Sahi, she told me I was lost, but told me I was full of light, and then explained to me that she could teach me to vibrate faster, right, a higher frequency. And she explained to me that everything vibrates, but I could only be aware of that which vibrated equal to or less than me. And so a lot of people ask me about the vibration or the frequency. How does the Theta meditation, the Theta state, right, which is whatever you want to call it, to get into that state, how does that raise our awareness?
For me, in my experience, I get the full bird's eye view for anything that I'm locked into on this plane. And we sure get locked into a lot because we're processing in this plane with these rules, and so tapping into Theta state for me is like going beyond all of this and coming into the potential of all that exists. And so many times, I experience this with a session. For example, somebody will come and they'll ask the most perplexing question that if you were trying to answer it from this plane where we're just like, oh my God, what could I even say to this person to bring any kind of resolution to this kind of perplexed problem? And then tap into Theta and bring in that potential of all that is, the light of all that is, and the things that come out of my mouth through that space is like, how is that even possible? That this is the path that opens up. So it's always open. It's like what you were saying to me today. The access is always there. It's just our awareness of that access. So if we allow ourselves to be in it, then that access becomes so clear, and it's like a massive floodlight, like shining light through this situation over here, and it's like, oh, this is the way through, so just change direction. And the kahuna I used to study with, he said most of the time it's a 10-degree shift. It's not about like, oh, I gotta dodge this or I gotta protect that. It's just like a little bit of a shift, and that's sometimes all we need is to change the perspective and redirect.
Right. I always think of my perspective like a rocket ship. If you're on Earth with a rocket ship and they change the rocket ship degree 1 degree, what the difference would be when you hit the atmosphere, when you would hit the moon, when you would hit Mars, if you would ever even come close to the sun, how far away you would be from a 1 degree. And that's the way I see perspective. If you can subtly shift your perspective.
Yes.
I have simple rules like I get to do instead of I got to do. A simple shift in a perspective that I get to do everything, and seeing the blessings. And so many people complain about what they have to do, and they all have blessings in them. And Theta has given me that awareness, that perspective, that quantum shift for quantum healing.
Yes.
And that goes to a cellular level where you're going to do a healing on us of unconditional love, which doesn't require any permission. When other healings that I've done and that you do more frequently, where you ask people for permission to heal them.
Yes.
And we have to deal with so many different lives and so many different planes, and it's very complex. But a healing that we'll get doesn't last forever, right? It's the same thing. It has to be consistent, and so we have to learn ourselves how to heal ourselves from this experience.
That's what I truly believe is that my favorite thing is to teach, and that's what I love to do. I've been doing it live and online, and that because I believe that Theta, this aspect of healing, completely takes the middleman out. You don't need anybody to tap into the source of light and bring that into your presence in whatever way that it works in your brain and the mindset of whatever that is. And that's the beauty. So yes, it's beautiful to go to a healer and receive a healing, and why not when that's available, and get a help to get some clarity, to tap in lighter or whatever. But to really learn how simple it is to tap in and to be in that space, and what we're doing, for example, right now, which is our next experience, is a simple, it's guided meditation, but it's really you guiding yourself, me just saying the words. It's really you being the facilitator of the healing for yourself, me just the witness. So it's really you doing this with yourself, with your higher source, space, whatever you call that to be. And that's the beauty, because everybody could do this.
Right, and we're going to start. I have one last question before we start, though. Why is a witness important?
If we're not witnessing it, then it's not happening. So if we, a lot of times our prayers are one directional. We're taught to pray, first of all, to something that's outside of ourselves, and I, first of all, truly believe in the power of prayer. It's so much energy that goes towards that, the love that we just send through that when somebody's ailing and we're sending them prayers of healing or whatever we call it. But in the big picture, there's a certain place where it's cut off. So it's a one-directional communication, and we're stating that which we're praying for, which we're recognizing that we don't have, into some source outside of ourselves and hoping that it comes about. So the dual energy of completing that cycle, bringing it full circle, calling it a manifestation rather than a prayer, is recognizing the potential of all that is, creating that and witnessing it as real in this life right now. So the same thing with the healing, witnessing that healing has occurred right now in that light being, in that body. So a healer working on you in terms of Theta healing session per se, it sees you whole and healed as that already is, not something we're striving for or that we're praying for or that we're needing or wanting, but rather something that is right now, and that's the witnessing. So we take that, if you call it prayer or focused meditation or manifestation, we take it into the light of all that is, where we're beyond all these sort of grid patterns of lockdown, and from that space we bring it into this reality and witness it as real right now. And that witnessing is what actually is bringing it in and grounding it. Otherwise it's just a loose-ended prayer that's floating out there, and hopefully someday somehow it manifests, which in some cases does. But this is like, let's do it faster and let's witness it right now and bring it into this reality now.
Right, and be your own witness as well as a witness for others, right?
Which is also another part of this, is when we tap into that Theta space, it's, as we are going to do next, is, I say slowly repeat, because it needs to be your own words. This is not somebody doing something to you, but it's yourself claiming your power in that space and bringing it inside yourself. So that's the difference as well. It's all about you and your reality that you're creating, and knowing that when we simply learn how to tap into the Theta wave, we can change our reality. It's as simple as that. And it's as important then to manifest only for what we want, rather than tapping into Theta and then thinking of all the things that are wrong, because then we'll start manifesting what we don't want.
Right.
So that's also it. With knowledge comes power, and so you want to hone in that power to make sure that you're in the space of bringing in what's your highest and best.
Right, receivership. And I think when we understand that everything comes through us,
Yes.
not to us or for us, that receivership, being our own witness, taking action, and then also being specific, right? One of the other things that we learn is you have to be careful. There's a responsibility of being careful what you ask for.
Absolutely.
Because the universe at this vibration, at this plane, is very literal. And so if we use the wrong words or use the wrong thoughts, we could get what we wanted, but it's not what we...
Careful what you ask for, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of power. I'd love to get started, and I know Colleen's really excited,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
right.
So
just for the flow of energy to be easy, it's good to uncross legs and just feet flat on the ground, and
no arms crossed, don't cross anything.
yeah,
How many times have you heard me tell you that?
Ease
Exactly.
flow everywhere. And again, this is a brainwave. We can access this with our eyes open or eyes closed, but in this exercise we'll just go eyes closed, so it's just simpler, easier to be internal. So when we close our eyes, we just kind of gently let the upper lid fall onto the lower lid.